On September 8, 2025, something unprecedented happened that could reshape the global economy forever. Brazil's President Lula da Silva called an extraordinary emergency virtual summit. Not a scheduled meeting, not a routine discussion, an emergency response to what he called tariff blackmail by the United States. Most people think BRICS is just another international club where countries make empty promises. But what just unfolded behind closed doors for 90 minutes will challenge everything you know about global power. Here is what really happened and why it matters more than any news outlet is telling you. Trump's administration just imposed crushing 50% tariffs on Brazil and India. South Africa got hit with 30% tariffs. This was economic warfare pretending to be political pressure. But here is where it gets interesting. Instead of backing down, BRICS did something that caught Washington completely off guard. Let me walk you through the 5 game-changing decisions that came from this emergency summit. Decisions that represent more than 55% of the world's population and over 40% of global GDP. Decision 1. The Unified Economic Shield. President Xi Jinping didn't mince words. He called out hegemonism, unilateralism, and protectionism as threats that are becoming more rampant. Here is what I find intriguing. Putin's statement probably had the key points of the BRICS whole strategy in it, given Russia's experience with Western sanctions and its pioneering work in dollar alternatives. It's likely that his input shaped the unified response we are seeing. Time will tell. But here is what's also remarkable. Instead of individual responses, BRICS created what Iranian President Jaishankar called a joint mechanism to support its members in the face of unlawful sanctions. Think about it for a moment. When the US targets one BRICS member, they are now targeting all of them. The facts speak for themselves. A recent study at the Lancet Global Health Medical Journal revealed shocking findings about sanctions. Unilateral US and European Union sanctions have caused more than 560,000 excess deaths each year. That adds up to almost 29 million deaths over 5 decades. The study looked at 152 countries from 1971 to 2021. It found the strongest effects came from unilateral sanctions by the US and European Union. Most of these deaths are children under 5 years old. They represent 51% of the total death toll. But here is the key difference. The study found no statistical evidence of deaths from United Nations sanctions. Only unilateral sanctions by individual countries showed this deadly impact. United Nations multilateral sanctions showed no such effect. The human cost is real, and BRICS just said, enough. Decision 2. The dollar alternative acceleration. Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov, before the meeting, announced they are developing additional steps to counteract the West's illegal actions in world trade and finance. What does this actually mean? BRICS members are increasingly avoiding the dollar to shield themselves from what they call US arbitrariness. This is massive. We are talking about countries that collectively control over $60 trillion in financial assets, more than 50% of the global total. Indian Foreign Minister Jaishankar pointed out something crucial. India's biggest deficits are with BRICS partners. But instead of seeing this as a problem, he's calling for expeditious solutions within the bloc. They are not just trading differently, they are building entirely parallel financial systems. Here is where I need your help. Hit that like button if you are seeing how significant this shift really is. And feel free to share your thoughts in the comments. Your engagement helps more people discover this crucial information. Let's discuss. Do you think this dollar alternative system could actually work? Let me know in the comments below. Decision 3. The Multilateral Reform Manifesto. Every single leader at this summit said the same thing. The current system is failing. But they are not abandoning multilateralism. They are demanding what Chinese President Xi Jinping called a more just and equitable global governance system. President Lula added fuel to the fire with a specific proposal that the BRICS countries have been talking about for a while: expanding the United Nations Security Council to include new permanent and non-permanent members from Latin America, Africa, and Asia. Egyptian President El-Sisi was even more direct. He said, "There is a significant decline in confidence in the United Nations Security Council because it's no longer capable of fulfilling its mandate." South African President Ramaphosa emphasized something powerful. Consensus is built through negotiation and not through coercion. This isn't just rhetoric. These countries represent the global South, and they are demanding their voices to be heard. Decision 4. The Trade Reorientation Strategy. Here is where it gets practical. BRICS represents 40% of global GDP and 26% of international trade. President Lula called for secure options to mitigate the effects of protectionism through enhanced intra-bloc trade. Jaishankar outlined the specifics: more resilient, reliable, redundant, and shorter supply chains. The goal: democratization of manufacturing and production across different geographies. Indonesian President Prabowo Subianto warned that in today's world, might makes right, and smaller countries face intimidation or economic coercion, where trade and finance are increasingly used as weapons. The solution: build alternative supply chains that don't depend on Western approval. China's Belt and Road Initiative just became the infrastructure backbone for this vision. Xi Jinping announced readiness to advance high-quality Belt and Road cooperation with BRICS countries. Decision 5. The WTO Reform Ultimatum. Here is the decision that could change global trade forever. President Lula was crystal clear. The World Trade Organization has been paralyzed for years. He said, unilateral measures have transformed into dead letters the foundational principles of free trade. But BRICS isn't abandoning the WTO. They are demanding that it works properly. President Xi Jinping called for upholding the multilateral trading system with the World Trade Organization at its core, while demanding a rejection of all forms of protectionism. Jaishankar emphasized the need for a global trading system founded on open, fair, transparent, non-discriminatory, inclusive, equitable, and rules-based approach. South African President Ramaphosa specifically called for BRICS to play a critical role in strengthening the multilateral system and championing reforms within the WTO. This is huge. They are not trying to destroy the existing system. They are demanding that it actually follow its own rules. The message is clear: either the WTO becomes truly multilateral, or BRICS builds something better. President Lula also proposed establishing a United Nations Climate Change Council to centralize global climate governance. This shows BRICS thinking beyond just economics. What do you think about BRICS demanding WTO reform instead of just abandoning it? Does this strategy make more sense? Here is something most people missed. The United Nations General Assembly opened on September 9th, just one day after this emergency summit. The timing wasn't coincidental. President Lula specifically mentioned using the United Nations General Assembly to speak with one voice in defense of revitalized multilateralism. Here is an interesting fact. Did you know that Brazil traditionally opens the general debate at the United Nations. Well, this year, they are carrying the unified BRICS message to the world's biggest stage. The theme of the 80th United Nations session, Better Together, 80 years and more for peace, development, and human rights. Perfect timing for BRICS to present their alternative vision. This wasn't just another diplomatic meeting. This was the moment when BRICS transformed from an informal club into what Indonesian President Subianto called a very strong pillar of stability and hope. The numbers don't lie. More than 55% of the world's population has unified against unilateral economic coercion. President Ramaphosa captured it perfectly. BRICS is positioning itself as a stable and predictable, mutually beneficial trading partner amidst current global disruptions. We are witnessing the transition from a unipolar to a multipolar world, and it's happening faster than anyone predicted. The September 8th Emergency Summit will be remembered as the day the Global South said no more to economic bullying. These 5 decisions represent more than policy changes. They represent a fundamental shift in how global power operates. The question isn't whether this will impact your life. The question is how quickly you will adapt to the new reality. What's your take on this shift toward a multipolar world? Are you optimistic or concerned about these changes? Share your thoughts in the comments below. The world just changed, and now you know exactly how. Thanks for watching.